The fourth episode starts with Shiryu being declared perfectly well and Seiya saying his head is fine, but since he doesn't need 2 surgeries here and there wasn't a single drop of blood so far, it does lose a bit of impact. Or maybe they're all master assassins and nobody explained. You couldn't even really see the tattoo disappearing and make the connection to his life being at risk. And then we have Shun, who says she didn't even want to be there.
Fazer o quê? Eu tenho que lutar, né?
Because showing yourself a pacifist is the same as saying fighting is boring, isn't it? After Shiryu says who his master is, which is pointless to those who saw him in the last episode, and Seiya says,
quer dizer então que você também tem mestre.
Dude, you do need brain surgery. Shun says she never defended herself from anything and that Ikki taught her to defend herself. First, and most importantly, they unicorned the hell out of Shun. The more obvious issue is that they took away a Bishonen to put a woman, which is much more palatable. So any discussion about someone capable not being in society's expectations? Adios. Now she's not a pacifist, but a person who defends herself because that's what her brother taught her to do. They're literally placing a woman who depends on her brother, who doesn't know why she has to fight, and calling this progressive.
I need this!
Damn, Yuna! I won't wear a mask because the system doesn't work for me. Boom! Strong and capable. Yuzuriha! I'm strong as hell and care less if you know my status or not. Boom! Strong and capable. Moreover, while Shun 86 doesn't want to fight, but knows that in a battle he needs to convince the adversary not to attack and shows his strength, here she says,
Bom, então tá.
And that's why she uses her chains. Which come from where exactly? I know, the Andromeda chains were never really explained. But they didn't stop and show something opening to say, look, here, here! It's like Batman in the animated series, who apparently was stuck in his stomach all the time and has a computer on his hand. And there's more. She's participating in the tournament because Axia, in Knights 86, they are in a coliseum and saying valuable thing would indicate the gold cloth everyone was coveting. I didn't mention this, but maybe Axia was a warning about his brother, counterposing what's valuable to others and what's important to him. But in this story, she was on an island, and she looks to the sea. And to get smarter, the chain that makes the nebula attacks Jeb instinctively in the original, while here we have an animation of her attacking with the chain. This would be stupid already, because it's a long animation to whip a chain that should have moved by itself, but let's make her have to move her entire body for a simpler attack than the stronger ones by her peers. If you've presented this in the opening, why not do something like that here? There aren't any effects even. It looks like she's using the chain as a whip, instead of conducting it through the air. And the chains start to react to something. Shun warns the others not to touch them because of the shock they already seen might happen, but since everybody's stupid, I understand why she thought she might have to. And then the golden cloth comes out on its own and the right arm is missing. Grodd's troops are coming, more drain-lit joke, with Shun stopping to say she could see their parachutes and she's glad today's Sunday, to then have another moment of we can't do anything because we shouldn't use our powers, which lasts way too long. Seika flashback, Dragon and Cygnus fighting over nothing, and Shun at least seems to be deflecting the bullets into the people shooting, which is more interesting. And there's a good Diamond Dust and Rising Dragon Lord too. I think they work better because they're made to be magnificent. Of course, the Meteor Punch being identical to before Seiya had any training really doesn't help. Oh, but it's a jet now. No one cares about knights against the army! They're supposed to be stronger to begin with! They even have to use their powers together to defeat the jet, because making your hero stupidly weak is an amazing idea. And after all this waste of time, the knights are back to the bunker, Saori escapes, the gold cloth is still there, couldn't tell you why, they should have taken the rest of it with them, and Ikki shows up. It's not as good as the sequence in the 86 show, but I can't say him coming out of the darkness wasn't good. The chain detects the hate, Ikki knew about Pegasus and isn't impressed, at least Shun says she understood he isn't the same anymore. 5th episode and the gold cloth is gone, they go to the meeting point and Saori complains like a bratty child. And after the holographic talk with her grandpa's ghost, Athena doesn't make that mistake in the old anime. But here, she's even more annoying than she already was. Oh, I missed the heated battle of the gods. Well, end of the day, Hyuga says he was going to kill Saori on the Sanctuary's behalf, which is confusing, since her being the goddess was never the issue, and no, she's Athena.
Porque você vai destruir o mundo. A profecia diz isso.
Shun says she's the Axia the chain was pointing to, and Shiryu and Seiya realize they were sent there to meet Athena, and she uses Nikki, goddess of victory, to knight them as Athena's knights. Which, I don't know, it feels kinda silly to have a consecration like this, but it might be good as a rite of passage? Ikki talks with Grad, Seiya knocks his chopper, and Grad activates the Black Knights that were within, and Seiya pities him because they're not his friends. The Black Knights in this version are the Steel Knights, but made by Grad. I didn't think it was bad in itself. It's weird to waste time with this while we could have more fights between knights, or the Black Knights of the original, but this is the world where the Grad Foundation couldn't belong to Mitsumasa Kido for some reason. We're speeding through the Bronze Arc, they decided having 4 fights and Black Knights would be too much, but we still have 2 with the Dark Steel Knights, the Knights of Poniard if you will. So, before Seiya can reach the Knights, one of the Black Steel Poniard Knights reveals himself to be Cassius. It's honestly not something I was expecting despite them having the same body model, but now I wonder, are the other ones like his identical cousins or something? Is Socrates there? He uses the Onyx Meteor, which I even kinda liked. There's more personality than just your attack but black. Oh wait, in Japanese it's Burakuryu Seiken. Well, but his armor is defective, and instead of tentacles taking over, he falls unconscious, meaning...
Eu sobrevivi, mas ele foi mais forte.
Of course, Shiryu, Hyuga, and Shun find Seiya fallen right after. Go without me, we made a promise, we can't lose Ikki, and the 3 other Poniard Knights attack, but they can absorb their attacks and use their cosmos. Oh, it gets worse. Weak point discovered, the expert in dodging who can attack from afar is hit so the fight is longer, but they finally get a minimal victory so Aldebaran lets them pass. And Ikki reveals himself a Miss Volcanic Gas, which is a really nice visual. Is there a reason? No.
I'll do it anyway.
The 6th starts with Mu speaking to Roshi. You know, the guy who hasn't shown up yet, unless this is him, which could be quite confusing, and Shun decides to sacrifice herself, which still works for her cloth, but it's not worse because she became a damsel. Only Hyuga gets in the way and makes a wall of ice, with the demon dust so they don't have to make a different animation, and Ikki takes the demon feast singing Esmeralda. How many pages have I written about the series already? Esmeralda is a reflex of Ikki's relationship with Shun. She is totally against fights, cares for him, and he for her. And there was a romantic implication between the two, which would be confirmed much later on in the series. More than that, Ikki's attitude toward Shun before he went to the Death Queen's Island was different from what it'd be towards Esmeralda. And since there was no implication that he thought of Shun in such a way, it was a reflex of his pacifism. And when his master says Ikki killed Esmeralda, it's also a discussion about the nature of war. Protecting innocents requires having bellicose force. Only here, Esmeralda and Shun aren't developed. Shun is now a woman, someone he taught to defend herself instead of staying strong, so it opens up the door to seeing her as fragile. In Cause 86, it might seem like Ikki says Shun and Esmeralda look alike to indicate the parallelism and to make a joke about the author reusing models, something he's done many a time. It stops there because he treats the two differently. But here, this ends up widely opening the possibility that he feels attracted to his sister, since he treats them both similarly. She's fragile is to she's fragile, as he's into her is to... I know that was not the intention, but it's the, that makes it possible. This and our knowledge of age. On top of that, now that Ikki doesn't hate her like the other knights due to some brainwashing,
O meu ódio me deixa mais forte. Agora eu vou usar esse ódio pra te destruir.
He might always have seen her that way. Suddenly, because Shuna's a damsel whose only strength is having equipment and doesn't have any ideological background, she's a little sister he might have felt obligated to defend instead of him respecting her from the start, aside from a period he lost control of himself. Besides, him having lost control flew right out the window, now that Ikki acts more like a douche than a guy who wants to win because he's strong and sees strength as the most important.
Então esse é o poder da amizade.
Yeah, they literally made it all into He Just Hasn't Seen the Hulk's musical. Back to the story, Esmeralda says someone came to the island and brought the mask, probably to connect it more to the sanctuary, which is actually good, before she gallops away. And with that, one strike. Damn, do you ever intend to make an interesting fight? And who the hell decided he should flop his wings like that? And more than once even? And Shaka shows up for nothing more than to say Ikki is not really full of hate, he's just a baby. And yes, this is valid. But damn it if it doesn't undercut the weight of it all. But that's not enough to finish destroying the Tsar. Ikki, who is so he could be a Super Saiyan, defeats the Free, them even saying they were ready to die. How sudden, ain't it? I guess they finally noticed that fights are violent. Until Seiya shows up, they compare each of their attitudes toward their sisters, which also isn't bad. And, yep, Sagittarius protects Seiya without having all that interaction with Ikki, so there's none of that subtext. Seiya's the chosen one. But wait, we can ruin it more. He lets the cloth go, and Ikki says he's throwing away an opportunity. Yes, they stop to say he could be wearing the cloth. It's worse than the end of a Nova, where Sagittarius just shows up. On top of the Knights donating their cosmos and parts of their armors for Seiya to use, this is never explained directly in the first anime, but Clocks Choose Their Users kinda explains it. Nope, it's just equipment here.
Meu amigo, mas nossa amizade...
Essa amizade! Esse é o poder da nossa amizade!
Então esse é o poder da amizade.
Do you think it was friendship? So that's joining of strengths that could be because there was no other choice, or even the first occurrence of Seiya bringing cosmos together now is just the power of friendship. If Saga had been friends with the Gold Knights, we're all fucked. The volcano erupts, they escape leaving the cloth behind, and we see Misty and Marine arriving to start the next arc. And look, this series is very tiresome in how stupid it is. I'd love to see a modernized version of the story, but this doesn't mean a version made in less time. This could have been like Sailor Moon Crystal, which brings the story closer to the manga. Instead of that, we have a talking drain cover. You're cordially invited for dinner in the Fantasy Palace. Huh. Oh, you're coming too! They might not let Purple